Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
All right, they just found Mike Pompeo. You'll never guess where he is, and you'll never guess. He's in Baghdad. He's in Iraq. He's in Baghdad. He had to cancel his meeting with the German chancellor in order to fly to Baghdad. Now, I'll bet you anything that this has to do with a steady supply of Iraqi oil for the American war machine in case of an attack on Iran, to convince Iraq to stay on the side of the United States of America and continue to provide a steady stream of energy for the war machine, the American war machine, right? Because Iraq is the second largest OPEC exporter of oil. And if we have Saudi and Iraq supplying our war machine, well, what could go wrong? I'm telling you that something is afoot, because everyone in the president's orbit has to go to jail now. Do you understand that? You understand Don McGahn is in contempt of court. You understand that Mnuchin is in contempt of Congress. You understand that Bill Barr is in contempt of Congress. Tomorrow they'll literally vote out of the Judiciary Committee contempt citation, contempt against Congress for Bill Barr. And it's, I mean, this is going to be months down the road, and it's not an immediate thing. And it really ought to be. It really ought to come out of the Judiciary Committee. It ought to go to the full floor of the House, which it will not do right away. It should. They ought to expedite. Even Nancy Pelosi is saying today that Trump is goading her into impeaching him. She said every day he's obstructing justice by saying this one shouldn't testify and that one shouldn't testify and the rest. So he's making the case, but he's just trying to goad us into impeachment. And wherever you go, I say to my colleagues, whatever it is, be ready. And whatever it is, we will be ready. So if you're going to be ready, I think what you really need to do tomorrow is go ahead, let the Judiciary Committee vote out the contempt citation for Bill Barr, and then put it on the floor of the full House, let the full House vote, it will pass, and then go send the Sergeant-at-Arms of the House, go send the Capitol Police to get Bill Barr out of his cushy little office in the Department of Justice right down the street there and arrest him. And then vote out a contempt citation for Don McGahn, who is, I'm caught between the worlds. You're not caught between the worlds. You're a lawyer. You're a conservative lawyer. And just because Donald Trump put your wife's friends in good, judgeships, and just because you got your pick, Kavanaugh, to the Supreme Court, doesn't mean you don't have to turn state's evidence on Donald Trump, because you do. Because you spent 30 hours, you spent the time, you brought the documents to Mueller. Those things are public now, and there is no claim of executive privilege, and you know it, McGahn. I've always said he was a bad guy. I've told you there are no heroes here. Mnuchin said yesterday, can't give you the taxes. He's in contempt of Congress. They ought to have a conveyor belt like the I Love Lucy episode in the Candy Factory. Speed it up! Speed it up! You're doing a great job. And just one after the other, cite them for contempt, vote, and then send out the Sergeant-at-Arms, send out the Capitol Police and arrest all these people. It's the only way. It is the only way. This is a bizarre time, and we need to use all the tools in our toolbox. And a jail is a tool in our toolbox. Contempt citations must be enforced. And the way to enforce them is to jail the people who are in contempt of Congress. And it sounds radical because we haven't done it since 1935, I guess. And we put some guy in the Willard Hotel because they don't want to use the Capitol, the one room that they had designated for George Washington's final resting place, which was then rejected as George Washington's final resting place. But that place is a small little cell, and it looks like a jail. And you know what? There's room for 3 in that little place. Looks to me like you could put McGahn, Mnuchin, and Barr in, not comfortably. Oh, no. Oh, hell no. And give them Mylar blankets and put them in jail. It is the only way. It is the only way. And we need to do it before this president launches some freaking war, because that's the end of the free press. I don't know, if it'll apply to us because we're so, we got our own little thing over here. And I don't rely on, the big corporations, to tell me what I can and can't say. But I don't know what's going to happen in a time of war with a Donald Trump president. I don't know if, there will be a ban on any information, if there will be some sort of a lockdown on opinion journalism, or some sort of a lockdown on the facts of, these aircraft carriers and these missile groups. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know. All I know is the USS Abraham Lincoln and the carrier battle group and a bomber force was sent to the Middle East, and Pompeo is in Baghdad, and they're sending a clear and unmistakable message to the Iranian regime that they are trying to provoke them into doing some damn thing that would start an all-out war, and it would be global. I mean, and we would be fighting on the side of the rogue regimes. We would not be fighting on the side of any country that cares about human rights. That is the way to break up NATO. That is a sick scenario. But you think about it, we would be fighting with the Saudis. Oh, my God. We'd be fighting with the Russians. Maybe the communist Chinese. Because they want to sell oil and they want to sell it to Iraq. You know what I'm saying? It's just, this is such a strange set of allies. And this is a real way to move the United States from the human rights, civil rights, respectable nations who Donald Trump has accused repeatedly of not paying their fair share, and siding with every autocrat on this planet. Every petrol state on this planet. Now, Russia wants Venezuela. So maybe this is a way that he gives, Russia Venezuela and we get Iran. I have no idea. I honestly don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what their grand, what do they call it? The grand game, the great game. But it's a game. It's a game that people die to as pawns in. But man, this is sick. This is so unbelievably scary, Now, we don't know if Donald Trump is approving of any of this, but he appears to be going along with all of it. I mean, the very beginning of his administration, he pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal, which took us 8 years to negotiate. And by everyone's account, Iran is still complying. They are in compliance. They have not enriched uranium. They're not starting up their nuclear facilities. They haven't. And still, we reimpose sanctions on them. Well, if you think that that's not designed to piss them off, if you think that threatening the Strait of Hormuz, where 30% of the world's oil shipments transit, that's where they all... And that Mike Pompeo talking about opening Arctic sea lanes as an alternative to the Straits of Hormuz isn't a provocation to tell Iran, we're going to make it so you can't trade. We're going to block the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to go with the Russian military. We're going to screw Norway, screw them and everybody in the Bering Sea area, and screw everybody in the Arctic region, okay? Finland. He was in Finland yesterday. Screw them all. We're going to take those Arctic sea lanes. We're going to use those. I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. But that's what Pompeo was talking about the other day. He was saying, ain't it great that we have global warming? The ice caps are now melting on the Arctic, and there's diamonds, and there's gold, and there's oil, and there's gas, and we could cut down the time of transit from, the United States to China by 20 days if we went through the Arctic, but we would have to take those sea lanes. And in order to do that, you'd have to enter into some agreement with Russia. And Russia would like to move into this hemisphere, and they just might let them. I mean, this is so sick. This is so sick. And just so you know, Iran's oil exports are 40% of their GDP. So their people are going to be in major crisis. The sanctions that Trump just put on Iran started May 1st. And it's already had the effect of infuriating their people because they are in compliance. And they're like, you can't trust anything the United States says or does anymore. You can't. And Iran is going to be. Wouldn't it be strange if Iran ends up aligned with the Norways and the UK and Canada and all that, and we're on the side of freaking dictators around the globe? I mean, I have no idea. But if we choke off those oil exports through the Strait of Hormuz and that strait gets close to other nations, there'd be a global crash. Now consider this. Russia's GDP, the entire that great gigantic landmass, you know what their GDP is equivalent to? New York State. Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.